Well, it's time now to meet somebody else who's now come forth for the general election in the Isle of Man, the House of Keys general election in Middle. Keiran Hannifin is joining us. A different location for this one. It looks like you're in your car.
Yeah, I've got two dogs that hate the phone, and my wife's cooking dinner, so rather than be a disruption to them, I figure I'd just take myself out of the way.
Well, that's what we can do with Skype. We can do it anywhere. You come out fairly early, Keiran, so let's have a bit of the background. Why so soon? What's your motivation for this?
Well, it gives a lot of time for people to get an idea of who I am. If I'm going to be potentially representing people, I want them to know, who I am, what I'm about, have a chance to be quizzed, and make sure that people are making the right decision. As well as that, I'm not a politician, so I want to make sure that if I'm going to be doing it, I'll be doing the job as well as I can. So I've got a lot of learning to do, a lot of reading to, a lot of people to meet, a lot of data to collect. So start early and have the best chance possible.
So what's your reason for standing?
I think the Isle of Man could just do with a slightly different approach to a lot of things in government. I think more people should have an active role and interest in local politics. We only have 86,000 people, and I think we live in a brave new world where we're going to be approaching different struggles than we have before. So maybe we need different politicians than we've had before.
Can you tell us a bit about your background, what you do, and what you?
Yeah, I'm currently a cleaner. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I've worked in the financial industry in life insurance. Yeah, I like walking my dogs, spending time with people, playing music. I like creating.
So there's nothing there about politics at all in your past. I mean, you think this is the right place to be? Go straight in as a member of the House of Keys?
Yeah, for sure. Well, politics affects everything from your student fees to your ability to be able to afford childcare, to your living capabilities, to your wages, to what you're entitled to and how easy that information is to access. All this is to do with politics. So to be involved in that and be able to make an active change, you have to start by getting involved, don't you? So that's what I'm doing.
And age-wise, I'm taking you're fairly young. I mean, you think that's important as well to get some younger blood in there?
I'm 31. I'm a fully fledged adult. I have a wife, and I pay my taxes and insurance and everything else. I think what is an appropriate age for a politician.
Are you aligning yourself to anybody? I mean, you're not in a party. You're an independent. Was that important?
My responsibility is going to be to my constituents, as per the job is supposed to be. Party politics seems to be a relatively novel thing going on the Isle of Man at the moment, where there is, pushes. I see Lib Bannon are doing pushes, and I see the Labour Party doing pushes for various things. And if I get in as an MHK, there's 24 of us who are going to be working together on things if we want to achieve stuff. So I'm not adverse to working with the party, but I don't plan to have my hands tethered by anyone but my constituents.
And what's made you stand? Are you not being dissatisfied with the last administration, the Quayle administration, of course, from Middle?
Yeah, well, there's various things, One, if you want to make a change, you actually have to make attempts to do it. But two, as I say, I have occasions where I felt I've been let down. I know more and more people are. I'm very aware of the suicide rate on the island. I'm very aware of the drug-related death rate on the island. I'm very aware of the lack of produce on the island and the lack of innovation. So I think if we can have more progressive minds, more innovative thinkers in Parliament, in the House of Keys, then we've got a much better chance of actually being able to look into the future of all the uncertainty after COVID and everything else, and be able to actually pave a pathway to a decent future.
And have you got a pathway for that? I mean, what solutions have you got to these sort of problems?
Which in particular, such as
suicide or whatever, that sort of thing. How can you bring legislation in? Is it a legislation thing, or is it a way of treating people better or differently?
And within legislations, I think there's a lot of changes that can be done. and could be done small changes from when you go to see a doctor. You're presented a receipt, for instance, so you know what the quality of care you're going to be getting moving forward is, to understanding that we have very little help with neurodiverse adults on the island, and the resources that do seem to be there seem to be locked away behind a door. So how do we get either more resources if we need them, or how do we get people to access them when they need them? Low income obviously has an effect on suicide, so to be able to change how the lowest income earners on the island are benefited and profited, then that's going to fix it. You always hear this term in Manx politics, which is it's a multi-pronged approach, and I think that's really what needs to happen. But the fact that we have twice the drug-related death rate and suicide rate of the UK, and we have consistently for quite some time, I think we certainly need to look at it. We need to be looking at the misuse of drugs more. So,
well, with the drug thing in mind, I mean, cannabis, albeit medical at the moment, is making its way through being legalised in some degree, even though it's exported. Have you got any particular views on drugs in that sense, then, of what you do?
In regards to cannabis?
Or any of them. I mean, up to you. You answer it how you want.
Well, we can start with cannabis because obviously it's a subject that comes up quite a lot, and it's a subject I do feel quite strongly on. We had it confirmed by our AG in 2018 that medicinal cannabis was legal here. It's legal already on the Isle of Man. It's illegal to import and it's illegal to cultivate. So despite there being an approved medicine that you are allowed legally, you can't have access to it. So for a petition to be put out, a public consultation, and 99.2% to be in favour of medicinal cannabis, for there to be no movement now, nearly 2 years later on, to sorting out either import or exemption certificates for the most in need of that medicine during a health pandemic, to me is inept at best and cruel at worst. So I'd like to see vulnerable people being able to access the medicine they have, and that's very much the stance I stand with cannabis.
Okay, don't get too stuck down in one thing here, but it's quite an important one. I mean, would you want to see it opening up other drugs as well to legalise exactly, or keep things pretty status quo except for cannabis?
Well, I've spoken to people like, there's people on the island who've had massive losses of life through drugs. So I'd like to see a bit more of a check on who is being, because bear in mind that most of these deaths are prescribed drugs, not illegal ones. So it's a bit of a convoluted argument in that way, but for recreational drugs, there's clearly a want and clearly a need, and I think there's a serious lack of education. When someone overdoses on, say, MDMA, and you go to a coroner about it, they'll explain that they took more than the recommended dose. So if there's a recommended dose, people should be educated on that to save themselves being killed. Okay,
moving things on. Because of time, where would you see yourself fitting into government? Would you want to be in government, or would you see yourself as the opposition?
Oh, well, I'd want to be in it. I'd hope that with 24 MHKs, I'm not going to be the only one who wants to make a change. So if you want change to happen, you have to take Tynwald with you. So I'd see myself being right in the middle.
And where would you fit best? Which department, if you had a choice, where would you like to be put in?
Oh, I'd like to be involved somewhere around the Treasury or Department of Health and Social Care.
Bearing in mind that the next Chief Minister will come from within, no doubt, because that's almost certainly. Have you got your particular eyes on anyone particular you'd like to see heading up the Isle of Man?
Allinson got a really, really, really high vote count last election, and I believe in the Isle of Man should have a bit more in the way of democratic allowance for that. So with him not only being a doctor, so understanding a good bit more of the education system than most of us do, he's also spent a lot of time as a Minister for Health, Education, so he has a wide scope of knowledge and the procedures around them. So
most likely Alison. Okay. How do you think they've done for the lockdown and the whole COVID thing? Do you think the government handled it all right, this one?
It's very hard to ignore that we've beaten COVID twice. Yeah, brilliant. Could things have been done in some ways better? Maybe. Should we go and do things in the future slightly different? Maybe, but you can't ignore it. There's always going to be room for improvement. But, I can hug my family for a Monday. It's hard to ignore that when a lot of the world doesn't have it.